5 p.m. Clovis State Police Investigations Bureau Office. Agent Hernandez from the State Police. In the room with me, Agent Chester Butler, from the State Police. Also in the room with me,
Ty Harmon, Brent Aguilar,
And Norma De La Rosa.
Mr. Harmon, you are representing
Mr. Aguilar, yes sir.
And for the record, Ms. De La Rosa is my legal assistant.
Okay, so obviously the reason over here for you to do a statement. Reference the incident occurred on October 8, 2018. Basically, what we're doing just to give us, describe specifically what happened.
Okay.
Okay, from, this stuff from the beginning, when you went to work and in service, calls for service that day.
Okay.
Calls for service in that day, everything that you to the call.
Okay.
My shift started, I officially start shift at 1900,
1900.
7 p.m. 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So 1900 to 0700. Briefing starts at 18:30, 6:30 p.m. Prior to going to briefing, I stopped at McDonald's, grabbed something to eat, ate my dinner, breakfast, whatever you want to call it. I ate my meal while I was in briefing. I leave my lapel camera, my body-worn camera, in my office. As a canine handler, a specialized unit, I get my own office at the PD, so I have my own computer. The USB is plugged in there, it sits there and charges overnight, or before I go home in the morning, I will download events that are recorded on it from the shift, just so I have a clean and charged camera ready to go. I walk to my office, got my camera. I don't remember the exact number of calls for service I took that night. I do remember some very specific calls, a domestic on sheriff, in which two subjects were arguing whether the town of Texaco was in New Mexico or Texas. The 14-year-old child that called in was worried that it had been physical. I remember this case because I spent a good deal of time out there. One of the subjects involved in that incident was out on conditions of release. I spent time on the phone with the on-call district attorney for our area, as well as the magistrate court judge, in reference to that case. My primary function as a canine handler is to patrol, be proactive. A lot of my calls are self-initiated, whether it be a traffic stop or something that I come across patrolling anywhere in town. Clovis Police Department breaks up town into 4 different zones, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I myself as a canine handler, I'm responsible for covering all those zones. I noticed that I was getting low on fuel in my patrol unit. I also knew that Pilot out on 6084 towards Texaco, or refer you to the city limits, sells the big gallon jugs of water that have a twist on cap, not the snap caps that tend to open and flood my unit. So I went out there to get gas, bought some snacks and the water. Returned to service. I was driving westbound on 6084 from Pilot when I noticed a subject jumping over the property barrier at one of the car dealerships just west of the Leal's restaurant that's on Main Street. It was late, it was about midnight. I found that rather suspicious. The restaurant wasn't open, none of the dealerships were open for business. I know it's not uncommon for folks to go in and look at cars, but I still felt that the subject jumped in this pylon needed my attention. So I started driving around in the area. I radioed for another unit to assist me because in the time it took me to safely turn my unit around from westbound on Maybrook to eastbound, I could not locate the subject. Sergeant John Howard and Officer Frank Hernandez with his recruit officer, I don't know his first name, Aguilar is his last name. They all responded to the car dealerships. We spent probably 30 to 45 minutes, I would think. I wasn't looking at a clock, but we spent quite some time looking for the subject that I saw, which we were unable to locate, and shaking car doors to ensure that none of the vehicles were left open. There wasn't a chance that they could be burglarized or stolen. I know I've been on grave shift for a while. I know that we've had issues with stolen cars in our community all throughout the city. So us, while we had the time, we weren't being assigned to any calls. We started checking car doors. As we were finishing that up, Clovis Dispatch broadcast a Bolo, but be on the lookout for a silver Honda SUV that was involved in a vehicle pursuit with New Mexico State Police. They provided a 1028 or a license plate. I wrote that license plate down on the meat of my left hand, being that I was leaving the parking lot of the car dealership. I didn't want to manipulate my notepad or try to find a piece of paper in my unit, so I just wrote it on my hand. They told me that the vehicle, or they broadcast over the radio during the Bolo, that the vehicle was initiated at 7th and Whole Allsups, and the vehicle pursuit that State Police engaged in was terminated at 12th and Davis. I was at the Bender Chrysler shop on Mabry and Humphrey is the intersecting road. Humphrey is. So I decided I'd go down there. Even though the vehicle was terminated, it's very common in my experience where subjects will be scared after running from the police. They'll ditch the car, they'll crash the car somewhere, park it in the alley, something of that nature. The time delay that was given to us by dispatch was 3 minutes, which is more than enough time to go in the area, try to locate the vehicle, and potentially deploy my police service dog Leo to track the suspect if he's hiding in the immediate area. It's not uncommon for me to assist outside agencies like State Police, the Sheriff's Office, Palmer County, Devine County, Roosevelt County, you name it. I've helped all our neighboring agencies with deploying the dog. Being that this was within my jurisdiction, I felt it would be effective for me to go to the area to try to locate this vehicle. I traveled north on Norris from Mabry Drive to 14th Street, and then westbound on 14th Street all the way down. My intended path of travel was 14th to Davis, and then start from there. That's 2 blocks south, or 2 blocks north of 12th and Davis, and just kind of start driving around and see if I can find a suspicious vehicle matching that description. As I was approaching the intersection of 14th and Thornton, westbound on 14th, Sergeant John Howard got on the radio, called me by my call sign, and informed me that, or suggested to me that I start heading towards the south side of town because he heard what he suspected to be automatic gunfire. I acknowledged him on the radio. He informed me that it would be more beneficial to take the whole street overpass, being that Prince Street overpass is closed to through traffic, and there was a train at Mabry and Norris. I also acknowledged that as I turned southbound, diverting from my original intended path of travel, diverting to this call that Sergeant Howard put out. Clovis Dispatch informed officers on the radio that there was a call for shots fired, for multiple shots fired. At that moment, I heard Sergeant Dagoberto Rodriguez and Officer Frank Hernandez get on the radio and informed PD that they were en route. I was at 7th and Thornton by this time. I believe I turned west onto 7th to Hull Street. And as I was driving, I was trying to formulate a game plan as to what I was going to do, how we were going to approach this when I went on scene. I didn't know where Sergeant Rodriguez was in town. I knew that Officer Hernandez and Recruit Officer Liebarger were present with me when the bolo came out. I also knew that Sergeant Howard was present with me when the bolo came out. And when I say present, Officer Hernandez and Recruit Officer Liebarger were in the same car dealership I was. Sergeant Howard was further west at a different car dealership checking vehicles. So I assumed that they were responding from that area. 7th and Thornton, in my mind, without knowing where Sergeant Rodriguez was, put me as the closest officer. So I prepared for that. I have 10 years experience on the SWAT team. Tactical planning. I also held a position as team leader for a brief moment during my career. So tactical planning is nothing new to me. Formulating a plan before going on scene is something that we're trained as police officers from the academy, and we build on that as you gain experience and time. So my plan, as I crossed the Hull Street overpass southbound from the highway from 684, was I was going to deploy my SWAT issue AR-15 on scene to provide lethal cover with a rifle. I know Sergeant Howard has been on the SWAT team with me for the 10 years that I've been on. So when he's informing me over the radio that he's hearing something consistent with automatic gunfire, I'm willing to validate that information. I'm pretty confident in his observations and what he recognizes. Sergeant Howard also has he's about to retire. He's been a police officer way longer than I have. He's one of those that if he's saying that, I'm probably going to take it for what he's saying. So I pulled over on South Hull, just past the overpass, right in front of One Stop Feed. I hit my arrow sticks. I got out of my vehicle. Being a canine handler, I don't have the mechanisms that secure your long guns in the void between the two captain's seats in the front of the patrol cars. I don't have that because I have a door that I can let my dog have access to the front cab of the vehicle. So I have to get out of my vehicle, pull my rifle from my rifle bag, and deploy it from there. Deployed my rifle, put it in the front passenger seat floorboard. I maintained it cruiser ready, cruiser safe. I didn't want to rack around until I got there. As I was getting back in my patrol vehicle, I saw Sergeant Rodriguez pass me southbound on Hull Street approaching Brady. I observed Sergeant Rodriguez turn eastbound on Brady. I continued traveling to the area of the shots fired call, which dispatch informed was 1408 South Oak in Clovis. Sergeant Rodriguez was probably, 100, 150 yards ahead of me. We're both traveling in the same direction. I observed the brake lights of Sergeant Rodriguez's patrol vehicle illuminate. I anticipated he was stopping for the red flashing light at South Prince and Brady. As I approached the intersection, I observed Sergeant Rodriguez proceed through the intersection and then make an abrupt left turn, turning northbound around the designated turn barrier, the raised concrete they have at that intersection. They have them on all four corners. He drove he turned left, northbound, around the northeast barrier. I knew that Prince Street was closed through traffic. I didn't anticipate seeing a lot of traffic on the roadway north of that intersection. I started scanning the parking lot of Stripes, trying to find what could have caught Sergeant Rodriguez's attention. I saw a blue vehicle sitting parked facing east, right in front of a small field that's between Ed's Recycling's property and the Stripes. I had prior knowledge the shift before, Saturday into Sunday, that a vehicle was reported stolen that was blue in color. I didn't know the make, model, or the license plate. I was on shift when the vehicle was reported stolen. But I proceeded to the original call at 1408 South Oak. After stopping for the red flashing light, I continued eastbound through the intersection on Brady, across Prince. I passed the Stripes to my north. I was preparing to turn southbound onto South Oak from Brady when I heard Sergeant Rodriguez call out foot pursuit on the radio. When Sergeant Rodriguez called out foot pursuit, I didn't hear the stress in his voice that usually accompanies an officer that's physically running after somebody trying to talk on the radio. That's usually very rapid communication. You can tell they're running or they're exerting some kind of effort. Sergeant Rodriguez spoke in a normal tone. Prior to hearing him call out foot pursuit, he informed the dispatcher on the radio that he was checking out the blue car north of Stripes. Immediately after that, he called out foot pursuit. So I activated my overhead emergency lights, my siren, and I activated my lapel camera. Being that I had westbound traffic on Brady approaching the intersection of South Prince, a couple of semi-trucks, I believe. I remember having to wait for a semi-trailer before I could make my U-turn. I proceeded north on South Prince from Brady. I started accelerating my patrol vehicle. I saw the blue vehicle. I did not see Sergeant Rodriguez. I did not see Sergeant Rodriguez's patrol vehicle. As I continued north on Prince, I saw the taillights of what I recognized to be a patrol vehicle. Sergeant Rodriguez drives the same style Ford Explorer SUV, Ford Interceptor SUV as I do. And as I made visual contact with that vehicle at the main gate of Ed's Recycling, I heard Sergeant Rodriguez saying on the radio that he was doubling back southbound. This time when Sergeant Rodriguez got on the radio, I heard the strain, I heard the urgency, I heard the sounds that were consistent with an officer actively chasing on foot. I observed a male subject wearing dark colored clothing running southbound in my direction on the median between a brown metal fence and the roadway. I then saw Sergeant Rodriguez running on foot behind him. So I attempted to stop my patrol vehicle. I slammed on the brakes, put the vehicle in park, and I got out of my patrol car. When I got out of my patrol car, I got out and I ran down the driver's side of the vehicle towards the rear driver's side corner. Once I cleared the rear driver's side corner of my vehicle, I observed the subject that Sergeant Rodriguez was chasing. I observed him run around a street sign. It's a diamond-shaped street sign. It was held up by two T-posts. When I observed the male subject turn around back in the direction of Sergeant Rodriguez, I observed Sergeant Rodriguez fall. It appeared to me that he had fallen off the curb and fell to the ground in the roadway, probably 5 to 10 feet from where I was at. When Sergeant Rodriguez fell, the subject turned around and continued running southbound. I didn't know what condition Sergeant Rodriguez was in, so I immediately ran around him and placed myself between him and the subject that was running from him. I recognized that the subject was running away from Sergeant Rodriguez, southbound. So I started chasing. I engaged in the foot pursuit. As I jumped, as I stepped over the curb into the same median that the subject was running in, I recognized that I was closing distance very quickly. I heard Sergeant Rodriguez shout out that he's grabbing for something or he's reaching for something. And I recognized the subject had his right hand around his right pocket, his right pant pocket. By this time, I had significantly closed distance on him, and my intentions were to go hands-on to control him, take him to the ground, and apply handcuffs to him. As I got within reaching distance of the subject ripped his hand from his waist area, from his pocket area. I recognized the right corner tail. It's like he had a zip-up jacket on. I recognized the right corner tail of that jacket fly up as his hand came out. He immediately turned around to me and raised his right hand, and I recognized he had an object in his hand, and he threw his right hand at me in a sideways sweeping motion. At that point, like I said, I was about to put hands on him. I was about to make physical contact with him to take him to the ground. At that point, I stepped back as much as I could from a dead sprint. I thought he had a knife. I thought he had a knife, and I thought he was going to swing that knife and cut me. The close proximity that we were in, I was concerned about my neck and my face. I knew he had something in his hand, and I knew he swung it at me. And I knew, based on my experience, my time as a police officer, that if I would have given him that opportunity to do that again, there was a very, very high chance that I would be injured, that I could be incapacitated, that I could take myself out of the incident. Not knowing the condition of Sergeant Rodriguez, knowing that he was vocal, but not knowing if he was still on the ground. In fear of him stabbing me is what I thought he was trying to do. I took a step back. I, at the same time, unholstering my duty firearm, and I shot him.
What happened? Take your time.
Good. I remember thinking If I got hurt, who's going to take care of? Sergeant Rodriguez. Who's going to take care of me? And who was going to tell my son? I thought that guy was going to say. After I shot him, Sergeant Rodriguez was standing to my right. He yelled at me, "Do you got him?" I've been on the SWAT team for 10 of my 12 years. The way it stands now, myself, Sergeant Howard, and Roberto Rodriguez are the 3 oldest SWAT officers at Clovis PD, with the exception of our commander, Lieutenant Robbie Tejas. I recognized right away that Sergeant Rodriguez was asking me if I still had lethal cover on him. I said yes. I focused my attention back to the subject, who was laying on the ground on his back. I maintained my weapon at a low ready position. Sergeant Rodriguez approached the subject, leaned over the subject. I observed him place his left hand on his neck, and he told me he thought he was 10-7, which that is a 10 code that we use for out of service, which is commonly used for identifying somebody that's deceased. After that, everything kind of came back into motion. I recognized my sirens were on. I recognized my police service dog who was in the back seat of or the back part of the kennel of my vehicle was barking. I heard other sirens from the distance approaching. Sergeant Howard arrived on scene, and Officer Hernandez and Recruit Officer Liebhardt arrived on scene. Officer Hernandez shouted to me that he was gonna secure him. I told him to secure him, and I pointed at Recruit Officer Liebhardt and told him to cover Officer Hernandez. And I walked away. Took a position at the front of my patrol vehicle. My concern at that moment became scene security. So I recognized after Officer Hernandez handcuffed him, he was still standing within proximity of the subject that I had shot. I told him to get away from the subject to preserve the scene. Asked him to secure the scene. I was approached by multiple officers asking if I was okay. I informed him I was okay. I asked one of my coworkers to call my girlfriend and let her know I was okay. Never called my dad, let him know I was okay. And then I stayed on scene as additional patrol officers on shift showed up, started securing the scene. Sergeant John Howard took command of the scene. Chief Ford, Captain Dial arrived on scene, checked on me, asked me if I was okay. Officers from New Mexico State Police showed up. I did observe the ambulance. At one time I requested an ambulance over the radio. After I advised shots fired, I forget it's not going to be in order, but I called for an ambulance. The ambulance crew arrived on scene. I watched them around the body from where my patrol car was. I didn't observe them do anything. I just saw the fire department uniforms. It started raining really hard, so I sat in my unit until New Mexico State Police escorted me to their 81, to their police department for processing.
Do you remember how many times you fired?
I believe I fired 5 times.
body.
I believe so.
Stood up and saw him running. When you saw him, he was going south on Prince. You saw the suspect running.
Yes, sir. I was in my vehicle traveling northbound on Prince, and I saw him running southbound.
So when he was running south, did you see anything in his hands when he was running?
I don't remember seeing anything in his hands.
You got closer to him, so you're getting grown on him. Did you see anything in his hands?
I did not. I couldn't see his left hand.
Which hand was in his pocket, you said?
His right hand.
His right hand was in his pocket.
He was reaching around his clothing. What looked to me like he was running with his hand in his pocket.
So when he went like this, like you said, what did you see in his hand at that time?
I saw a dark object. I saw his hand cupped like this, like he was holding on to something of object. And his hand didn't come up in a fist. His hand didn't come up in an open hand gesture. Like it didn't occur to me that he was trying to punch me or slap me. I saw his hand with something in it. I couldn't specifically tell you what it was. The reason I thought he was going to stab me is the manner in which he swung his arm at me was a forward circular manner, just like this. He pulled his hand out, and from the police academy to continuing training at the police department, being versed in reactionary gaps and less lethal options, things of that nature, as a taser instructor and as a 6-year canine handler. A lot of the scenarios that I've been put through my training, that is a very common way to apply a knife strike. It can be done in that motion. It can be done the complete opposite way, a reverse sweeping circular motion. I did not feel like he was trying to punch me or hit me. His body mannerisms weren't displaying that. I've been swung at before as a police officer. I've been punched before. I've been slapped before. And none of those mannerisms were what I recognized.
Yeah, and some of this you may have covered, I just wanted to clarify it for me, but you mentioned the vehicle, you see the blue vehicle. You knew there was a rollout for a stolen vehicle. Did you recognize that vehicle as the stolen vehicle that was the bolo was not flowing nearby, or?
No, sir, I did not. I knew through conversation, communication, and briefing that the vehicle stolen the night before on our shift was a blue and color vehicle. I did not specifically request for a make, model, or license plate. I didn't know the make, model, or license plate number of the stolen vehicle. I knew I had prior knowledge that there was a blue vehicle. I didn't know if it was a dark blue vehicle, light blue vehicle, newer, older. I didn't know that much. I didn't know any of those specifics. I knew the color of the vehicle. And I recognized that. I started thinking about that as I started scanning the parking lot of Stripes and the empty roadway of South Prince towards the overpass. The only thing I noticed that was suspicious, or that I would assume that Sergeant Rodriguez thought was suspicious, was that vehicle. The manner in which it was parked. There's a convenience store right there on the corner. The vehicle, it was close to 1 in the morning. The convenience store wasn't very busy. There's numerous parking stalls available. The fact that that vehicle was parked where it was made it suspicious. The fact that it was a blue vehicle, and the blue vehicle had been stolen this shit before, made it suspicious to me. But I had a call. I was right down the street from the shots fired call, which was the initial call that I responded to.
Did you know the suspect? Did you have any prior incidents involved with him?
I'm not completely sure of his name to this point. I've refrained from watching or listening to the media at this point. Any social media I've refrained from. I'm not sure of his name.
Okay. And after the incident happened, did you or anybody else canvass the area or find your weapons in the area?
I did not, and I don't know if any other officers did. I did not. I pretty much, after the incident,
He asked kind of a two-part question. Did you canvass the area? Did you find a weapon? You just answered, I did not. So which part are you
I did
saying?
not canvass the area, and I did not locate a weapon.
Okay.
After the incident, I stayed really very close to my patrol car.
How long, I mean, it's just, I guess what I'm asking for is maybe like an estimate between the time you exited your vehicle and the shots fired happened. Do you recall about how long that took place?
If I was to guess, inside of 2 minutes, inside of a minute and a half. It was a very, very quick, very dynamic situation.
And as far as the amount of rounds that you carry on you and your extra magazine and your weapon itself, how do you load that? How do you carry?
So the magazines, I carry 2 magazines, 2 pistol magazines at the front left side of my belt. They both hold 12 rounds apiece. I typically carry 12 rounds in the magazine that is seated in the weapon, and I have 1 in the chamber.
Okay. Do you carry a back?
No, sir, I don't.
Is your weapon a department issued weapon?
My weapon is my personal weapon. I purchased that. I followed Clovis Police Department policy to have it reviewed by our firearms committee, approved by the chief, and then I qualified with it through the DPS standard.
No.
Prior. Yes, sir. Prior to carrying it.
All qualifications and firearm scores are up to date.
Yes, sir. Those are required to maintain my position in the SWAT team.
The ammunition you carry, is it department issued ammunition?
It is. It's our policy to carry department issued ammunition. Even if we are carrying our own guns, the police department provides that ammunition.
What is your policy on recording, audio recording, video recording? You record all incidents, all encounters with code?
It is in our SOP to record audio, video, or both, any encounters that we have with the public, any calls for service, regardless of the nature of the call. That's to be documented either by a digital recorder, a issued body cam recorder, something of that nature.
As the suspect is running away from Sergeant, is it Rodriguez?
Yes, sir.
I think he asked you something similar. Do you recall anything in his hands at that point? I mean, at what point did you very first see them running back towards where you were?
As I approached the furthest south entrance to Ed's Recycling's parking lot, northbound on South Prince, towards the overpass, I recognized the taillights of Sergeant Rodriguez's patrol vehicle to my front 2.5, 45 degrees off my 12 o'clock. I saw the reflection of his headlights off of the gate to Ed's Recycling, and then I recognized, I saw movement in between myself and the vehicle. That movement was the suspect. And then it's almost immediately after I saw the suspect, I trained my sight on Sergeant Rodriguez.
Okay. And did you recall seeing anything in the suspect's hands?
I don't.
When you exited the vehicle, did you exit the vehicle with your sidearm in hand or was it still holstered?
It was still holstered. My sidearm was holstered until he swung at me.
You mentioned that Sergeant Rodriguez had said or conveyed to you somehow during I guess around the time that he fell, that he maybe seen the suspect with something, and I can't remember how you put that. Had he had something or?
Sergeant Rodriguez yelled that he was reaching for something.
Okay.
He said he's reaching for something.
Did Sergeant Rodriguez ever tell you, hey, I seen something, or later on, or did that ever come up?
I haven't spoken with Sergeant Rodriguez since the incident. The only thing I remember Sergeant Rodriguez telling me was that his leg hurt because he quote unquote ate shit. He fell.
How long have you been in the department?
I've been with the department since April 24th of 2006. It'll be 13 years in April of 2019.
As you were talking, you had a lot of specialized training,
Yes, sir.
SWAT team. What other kind of training do you do?
Well, I've attended basic and advanced SWAT. I've attended a SWAT K-9 workshop. I am required every 2 years to recertify as a TASER instructor. I've been a TASER instructor for approximately 10 years. I complete all required biennium training that's put on by the police department as required by DPS, to include emergency vehicle operations, firearms qualifications, response to resistance, domestic violence, and a legal update put on by the Judicial District Attorney's Office, giving us insight on new case laws and things of that nature. I am a certified field training officer. I maintained that position for 7 years prior to K-9, and a little bit during K-9. I've been to instructor development courses. I've received training in narcotics interdiction through Desert Snow, basic field evidence classes through the PD as a detective. I held a position as a detective for 10 months prior to lateraling over to K-9.
A lot of training over the years.
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that we haven't asked you that would be important?
Not that I can think of.
I'm going to hit on that again. Is there anything that you haven't actually feels important, even though it seems minute, something unimportant to you?
No, sir.
Do you have any questions for us that we might cannot answer?
No, sir. Not at this time.
I don't have anything else.
Do you remember approximately the time that you were with Sergeant Rodriguez?
I don't. I would say approximately 0100, 1 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there.
Between midnight and 1 in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harmon?
Nothing? Thank you so much.
Mr. Aguilar is approximately 2:40 p.m.
Did we get all his information for the initial report, his date of birth, all that stuff?
Yes, let me just send that down, but I know I did. What's your date?
3/17/84.
Address, foot department address.
Pardon, phone number, just your full name.
It's Brent A. Aguilar, Brent Allen Aguilar, A-L-L-E-N.
Again, it's 2:43 p.m.